I welcome you all with love. And the Parsha for today is Mishpatim. And first let's just start with the key prayer, which is the key to the last two Parshas. Hashem Yikud Kudushabrihu Ushahinte Bi'ilu Ilu Lahe Chini Kibuloke Birasam Hashem Kuzriel Kolim. Amen. And that is about the merging of the heavens and earth. And it would seem, after we've been elevated to the heavens with receiving the 10 speakings, that it's kind of strange to be talking about such an earthly thing as your everyday activities, which Mishpatim superficially, or let's say in a superficial understanding, addresses. It really is about the merging of the heavens and the earth. And what I mean about that is it is really about integrating the heavenly understandings with our everyday actions. I'll take it a little deeper now, because to truly understand it, we really need to understand between the meaning of the walk between the blima and the ma. The nothing, blima, and the ma, the something. In a more mystical way, the Hebrew meaning of the word ma is actually the power to nullify the ego and be totally present in the something. That's where we really kind of move into the understanding of Mishpatim. So Ma is the ability to nullify our identity with the I amness. Oh wow, okay, now we're in a different world. Because now, in the Ma, the something, or really the what, is what it means, we are able to look at our everyday activities as elevating awareness in every moment. That is a huge step towards liberation. It's no accident that Mishpatim starts with a discussion of slavery, which it doesn't really mean slavery, but it can mean that, and we have choices. And you say, of course, I wouldn't choose to be a slave. But the truth is, 80% of Am Israel in the day of darkness, the 9th plague, chose not to break out of slavery and die. And here again, we have the choice. Are we going to live in slavery? Or are we going to walk towards freedom? It's a profound and important choice if we're truly to understand the meaning here of Mishpatim. Well, we're going to take it a step further. Before we can get to that light of God radiating within us, we have to go through some levels of emptiness. And this is what distinguishes the person who is a light to the world versus a darkness to the world. There's a little bit of pain in the emptiness, but that goes away when we're in the Ma. We're in the place where we have nullified the ego, and in that place we're able to create the brilliance, the brilliant light of the divine, and experience it within ourselves. Now, today we may have noticed that there's a lot of darkness being activated in the earth. And a great deal of that darkness is people, instead of going in through the emptiness to the light, to the Ma, are choosing to do everything but do that. Worshipping Satan, doing evil acts, child sacrifice. It goes on and on in the whole picture, because you get a temporary hit of the illusion being alive when in fact you're going deeper and deeper into the darkness and the deadness. So we have a choice not to be enslaved, being a zombie, living off the small hits of energy we get from our acts of evil. And those are the choices that are here too. Do we be a slave? Or do we take our time in the matrix and use it to wake up to go beyond the matrix? That's the very first choice. So they talk about if you choose not to, then you go in front of the judges. Judges try to convince you, hey, you want to be free. Oh, but if you choose to stay in that safe space in the matrix, then at the doorway, and the doorway has to do with the doorway to freedom, they have an all put through your ear, stuck to the doorway. So we have those choices, and it's very, very powerful to understand now that we have, in the more esoteric meaning of Ma, the what, the ability to nullify the self, nullify the ego, and reach into the non-causal joy, non-causal peace, non-causal love, non-causal contentment of who we are. We really have those choices. So the juxtaposition of Yitro, where we're given the 10 speakings, elevated to the highest, and Mishpatim judges, appears the everyday ways of being, is really a choice if whether we want to live as a slave in our everyday activities, or always be walking in the light of the Ma that gets released as we clear our ego imprisonment. So that's an overview of Mishpatim. Now the second level in the Mishpatim is, it really brings up the idea of medad keneged medad, measure for measure, also known as karma. And we're not talking judgment. So this is a real misunderstanding. We're talking measure for measure. Our actions have consequences. It's not like God's getting angry at us. Our actions really have consequences. Medad keneged medad. And it brings up the whole idea of consequences. So to speak, truth or consequences. Either we live into the truth or we have the consequences of that. So people are now given this opportunity because it explains it. And it also indirectly speaks to the meaning of reincarnation, which is definitely part of the Torah teachings, and not as explicit but implicitly. So between karma, which goes over lifetimes, and reincarnation, these two teachings and principles are introduced. So now we're getting a very powerful overview of what's going on. There are many, many details here. I'm just going to quote from Shemot, Exodus, Mishpatim 23, in a little bit of 22, some very key teachings. When it says in 22:27, you should not revile God, and you should not curse a leader among your people. We see that going on all the time right now. Whether you like or don't like Trump doesn't really matter. You know, when I'm playing football, I always respected the opponent. If you see it that way, you always have respect for the opponent and respect for yourself. These are key principles. So it's saying God has put these people there. We need to respect that and deal with it appropriately. Then it says, don't accept a false report. Do not extend your hand with the wicked to be a venal witness. So today we have the fake news. And it means be very thoughtful and discriminative in the news that we're hearing. Check it out. But here it is. This is 3,000 plus years ago. And what are they saying? Don't accept fake news. How wild is that? And then, don't be a follower of the majority for evil. And do not respond to a grievance by yielding to the majority to pervert the law. So what they're saying is, don't buy PC. Don't be politically correct. And even if it's the illusion of the majority, that there is a majority saying this is the way it is, PC is a temporary revision and rebellion against the perennial truths. So it says, stay with the perennial truths. What are the perennial truths? GC. God correct. Okay? And that takes us, when we go back to perennial truths, that takes us beyond the idea that we can make up politically correct things for this week and next week and keep changing it and not align ourselves with the perennial truths, GC. And really what we're saying is the perennial Torah truths. So that's a pretty strong teaching. Then it says, don't respond to a grievance by yielding to the majority to pervert the law. So it's like that's kind of, again, the whole thing of kind of going against what we really know about the law, whether we call it genetic laws, XX and XY chromosomes, or all the other kind of ways that are there. These are perennial truths, which become, take precedence over, oh, I feel that way, therefore it's true. Now, I'm speaking a little vague, but I'm speaking very directly. This is what the Torah is talking about here. And then it says, don't glorify a destitute person in his grievance. Well, that's a strange kind of thing to say, but today people are competing about who's most oppressed. That's what that's talking about. Don't buy that. You don't get ego points because you think you're more oppressed than someone else. This is karma. If somebody has difficulties, they're born in a certain situation, or that's a karmic result. You don't get a higher ego ranking because you're born blind, or born without a hand, or whatever. And so today there's a tendency to say, well, I'm more oppressed than you, therefore I have more say than you. And what it clearly says is, no, that's not the case. Now those are just some not so subtle teachings that apply directly to our world situation today. And I would say more overtly to European and American forces that are trying to to control people's minds with PC versus GC. Well, you'd hardly think, my goodness, how could this be so relevant more than 3,000 years ago? Because the perennial truth actually is the perennial truth. The divine truth is the divine truth. And even though it's contracted down to our everyday activities, it helps us stay in alignment and not get caught in overt attempts to control people's minds by social pressure, which is exactly what this is talking about. You know, I'll read it again. It's like, wow, don't be a follower of the majority for evil. And don't respond to grievance by yielding to the majority to pervert the eternal truth. Wow. So, Mishpatim is pretty deep. So we start with the ideas how to live in the world to make every action a sacred event. We talk about the laws of karma, the dot connected with dot, and reincarnation. And then we talk about the perspective. If you put those in perspective, you understand people are born different ways to work out their karma. Not to get ego points because they're more oppressed than somebody else or whatever illusion they want to create. Now, it ends with Moshe going up the mountain again. But we're not quite there. So one of the problems that Moshe is facing is there are not enough awakened people. So God instructs him to take the 70 elders and her and our own Nadav and Abihu a little bit up the mountain, not much, at the base of the mountain maybe, and help them wake up. And they have a collective vision of the divine, which they see the vision of God and a sapphire stool in front of him, a sapphire brick. And there's some controversy about what it means because it says, and then they were eating and drinking. But the hand of God didn't reach out against them. Oh, what does that mean? Well, the answer isn't totally clear. Different great interpreters interpret it one way or another. Maimonides interprets it as positive. They had a vision of the divine. The flames of fire were above their head. They became awakened. The Ruach Kadesh was awakened. And they were celebrating with food and drink, and then afterwards. Now, you can say it the other way, is they're just so involved with the material world and identified with it that they weren't ready to receive the vision. I go back and forth, but where I stand with it is an in-between place, which is, again, between the Blima and the Ma. So those who are ready to be in the Ma, which is, again, the self-nullification, were able to receive it at its highest octave, and that light was activated. The Ruach Kadesh, the Spirit was activated, and the flames were above their head. And so I'm assuming that that is what happened there, because the flames were above their head, and people began to prophesy. And then, it was only then where Moses says, okay, be here, I'm going up the mountain again. And if you have questions, talk to Aaron or her. Okay. And Moses then again ascends the mountain. Some people say up and down maybe 8 times in the whole thing. No, I don't know. But definitely up and down more than a few times. And he stays in the mountain for 6 days before the voice of Hashem calls him. So there has to be a purification that needed to go on in that process. And he's up there for 40 days. Ultimately, when we add it all up, 80 days without food and water. And he's able to take in the divine revelation of both the written and oral Torah to come down and teach people. And so that's the key. Moshe is a word we call a Zadok, Gabor, an enlightened Zadok. Okay? And he had the ability to awake people, and then he had the courage to walk up the mountain into the unknown. And I bless everyone that we all have that spiritual courage to walk up the mountain into the unknown of